Well, let's talk about Robert Parker for a couple of minutes. Robert Parker died in 2010 at the age of 78. At that time, he had written 39 Spencer novels and about 30 additional novels, so he was a very prolific guy. His life path is interesting to me. After serving in the Korean War, he went to school on the GI Bill and ultimately got his doctor's degree in English. I heard him speak at the National Book Festival in Washington, D.C. a few years before he died, and he said he wanted to be an English teacher because it seemed to him that English teachers hardly ever worked. Well, he found out differently. He got a job at Northeastern University in Boston teaching English, doing exactly what I do. And he hated it. Composition classes were the worst, he said. I was constantly faced with mountains of papers that students hadn't wanted to write and that I didn't want to read. So I canceled class all the time. Well, in 1971, while he was still teaching at Northeastern, he began his first novel, which was published in 1974. It was called The Godwolf Manuscript, and it was the first Spencer novel. Early Autumn is the seventh novel in the series. It was first published in 1980. It was about this time that Parker resigned his position at Northeastern and began writing full-time. I want to tell you a couple of things about Robert Parker as a writer. First, he transformed the genre of the detective novel. And I should say that there are different kinds of detective novels, and the Spencer novels come out of a tradition called the hard-boiled detective novel, a genre that features a private eye in an urban setting, a dangerous female, and quite a lot of violence. Parker adheres to the genre in a lot of ways, but he deviates from it in other important ways. First, Robert Parker was the first to give his detective a personal life. Fictional detectives before Spencer had no personal lives that we as readers knew about. We only saw the detective at work, on the job. We never saw him at home. We knew nothing about his past or his relationships. Robert Parker changed all that. In the Spencer series, what Spencer does when he's not working on a case is often as interesting or more interesting than his detective work. Now, all detective novelists build personal lives for their detectives. In that respect, Robert Parker's influence on the detective novel is enormous. Second, Robert Parker's detective, Spencer, is something of an intellectual. That was new. Hard-boiled detectives before Spencer were street guy types. The most well-known detective in American hard-boiled literature before Robert Parker's was Mickey Spillane's Mike Hammer. Mike Hammer was a two-fisted, brawling womanizer type, a real tough guy. Mike Hammer's world is black and white. There are good guys and bad guys, and there's nobody in between. Spencer's world contains a lot of gray. Things aren't simple. Spencer's tough and good in a fight, but the thing that makes him really interesting is that he's a thinker, and that makes him different from all the hard-boiled detectives that had come before him. Now, all hard-boiled detectives are well-informed, well-read types, and we have Robert Parker to thank for that. Third, Robert Parker developed a quick, fast, witty style. He recognized that culture is speeding up. The pace of people's lives is increasing, and attention spans, for reading at least, are decreasing. And he worked to develop a style that is quick and witty with sharp dialogue. Chapters are short. No one in the detective genre had written quite like that before. And as Robert Parker grew older and wrote more, his style got ever more concise. Now, lots of mystery writers write that way. James Patterson comes to mind most immediately. But nobody did before Robert Parker. Well, that's a little bit of context about Robert Parker that will give you some things to think about as you read Early Autumn.